It's
The world gets to see that tonight. As long as you could see the room. I don't.
ready.
What you guys want? Okay. I'm ready.
All right. Call the meeting to order. Tiffany, please take the roll.
Councilman Harjo.
Present.
Councilwoman Merkla.
Present.
Councilman McCarthy.
Present.
Councilman Sanders.
Present.
Mayor Sykes.
President, let the record reflect we do have a quorum for Tuesday, May 26, 2026 at 5 p.m. Really quick, council, I'd like to amend the agenda really quick in lieu of time for Mr. Schroeder. I'd like to move item number 2, a new business, right after conflict of interest declaration. Does anybody have any issues with that?
No issues.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna do that real quick. Okay, we're gonna run down to. Yeah, we're gonna run down to, sorry, run down to persons in the audience. Would anybody like to get up and speak for 3 minutes?
Hello, I'm Dara Corvus. My comment will be quick today. I was looking at the renderings for Railroad Park. For one, on my phone, you can't click on the images and zoom in, so then it just looks blurry. And I know it's a beautiful park, so maybe that would be beneficial to have it so you can click and then it'll blow up so then people can look at it. I couldn't find any information if it would have an information kiosk for like posting events and shows and whatever people come up with. That has been something that's been brought to me a few times, asking why there's no central information booth that can be held under lock and key from the city, so then you can request to put something up there. And it's just constantly updated. Love the posters around, but that is what was brought to my attention. And then I also emailed everyone to take a look at that, just a couple of ideas. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Anybody else? We're gonna run down to conflict of interest. Has any council member received any information pertaining to or otherwise had any contact with any person regarding items of the city council agenda? If so, please set forth nature.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Workla?
yeah, received a phone call from Alan Bump regarding number 3 on the consent agenda.
All right. And that's it. We're gonna run down to item number 2, new business. Mr. Schroeder, this one is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I believe you've all seen a copy of the intergovernmental agreement for the collection of, or the administration and collection of development impact fees for the county EMS. And I'm just wondering if any of you have any questions or concerns about it. The county has approved it and signed it, and I think I've spoken to or read emails from some. Ready for any questions?
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo?
Jeff, I apologize for not getting you this one sooner because it's one that popped in my head today. Under section 9.2, or section 9, term amendment and termination, being that there is some state code that helps define like the cadence of which CIPs and similar need to be updated. Do you think it's in our best interest in that this agreement shall continue in force and affect perpetually, that we should also put a statement in there that says, you know, we're going to address this on a 10-year cycle, on a 5-year cycle per Idaho code? Do you think there's value in adding that language in there?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Harjo, I don't think it's necessary because we still retain the control. If we are delivered a modified or amended capital improvement plan that we don't agree with, that the city doesn't agree with, they simply don't adopt it, and we cease collecting them. In other words, this intergovernmental agreement is contingent upon the adoption of and the approval of the CIP for that. So we still possess all of the power to do that. We can terminate the agreement separately if we wish to go our own, to Fleetwood Mac and go our own way. But if the CIP or the methodology by which the CIP is calculated through our influence with our Impact Fee Advisory Committee and the joint one isn't sufficient to make it correct for this governing body to adopt, you have that key. You have the power to say, no, we're not going to do it. So it's not really necessary in here to contemplate that, simply because of the way the statute is structured. Over the separate sovereignty of the county and the city. You have the ability to rescind this ordinance. You have the ability to rescind that part of the code. The city's impact fees, let alone the county.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman McCarthy?
Jeff, kind of on that same note, thank you for that explanation. I guess I'm just kind of curious with, we've had this conversation, you and I have chatted today about the county CIP. We've started having conversation, at least this body, and we have an agenda item on it tonight about the city CIP. Well, I appreciate the idea that, or the notion that we can terminate at all time if we don't agree with the joint CIP. I guess I'm curious to see your legal advice for adopting this agreement, and that when there's sufficient enough data to show that the CIP is already flawed. So my question is, in legal advice, is it practical and beneficial to go into this agreement knowing that the CIP is flawed when it comes to the growth rate and that on the county, same that we have on city side?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman McCarthy, that makes an assumption that the CIP is demonstrably flawed enough that it would make a difference. It's currently an approved CIP, both for the county and for the city. So keeping this agreement in place, it still would be the burden on someone challenging that fee to prove, beyond with a preponderance of the evidence, using their own evidence that those assumptions upon which it was based are flawed. That's kind of a steep hill. And then with respect to other legal questions about legal exposure to the city, the discussion that you and I had, and I'll bring the mayor up to speed on it, is going to be the topic of an executive session, a legal memo for the city. In any event, the collection of these fees pursuant to this agreement and the developer paying them directly to the county exposes only the county to the liability for that.
Mayor. Councilman McCarthy?
Sure, and thank you for your answer. It sounds that that's more of the burden side comes from the developers and who are coming in, but I guess my question is, and I'd love to go over the data, as someone who was part of the initial joint impact fee with the county to discuss the errors that are coming up. But I guess my question is, if there's something that this body or members of this body feel that there's errors with the county CIP, that's where I'm more concerned about, is the legal function, if we can, in good conscience, actually adopt this agreement. And quite frankly, also too, with the county, I am concerned when it comes to the project list of CIP projects, how a shop for Pine for EMS is taking precedence over the West Station for Mountain Home, according to the CIP for the county, where, Mr. Allen Roberts had stated that we had 67% of the EMS calls were coming from Mountain Home. So what I'm trying to say is that I have reservations about the CIP process, the formulas, the growth rate in that. So your legal expertise is what I'm I'm asking for in adoption of this as a council member.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, Councilman McCarthy, built into this agreement is at least bi-monthly meetings of the Joint Impact Fee Advisory Committee to correct errors in the CIP. In other words, as the county stated during our meeting we had with them here, during those hearings, they are endorsing and have bought onto the idea of constantly keeping their finger on the pulse and correcting errors in the CIP on an ongoing basis and not an annual or 5 or 10-year basis. Because they correctly ascertained not only yours, but the remainder of the council's skepticism as to that CIP. And so if that Impact Fee Advisory Committee and that Joint Impact Fee Advisory Committee meet regularly with the new consultant, Colin, who is a different animal or different way of approaching this task than was the prior one, then again, the legal risk is taken care of because you as a city council have built into both your ordinance and the city code and this thing where they're required to meet way more often than is required by statute. And they're required, this city and the county is required to provide both halves of that Joint Impact Fee Advisory Committee real-time building data. So your expectation would be to demand of that Impact Fee Advisory Committee its report to you as to the sufficiency of that. And again, you retain the power to say, sorry folks, we're done. So entering into this agreement simply shows that we're willing to move forward with the process and produce real numbers. That's what this agreement says. The worst risk is, again, the county, if these end up being shown to be incorrect somehow, the county is on the hook for refunding them and not spending them improperly. And just, if I could throw one more thing on here, again, just the essence of this agreement, just so you're aware for your constituents' benefit, the essence of this agreement is the processing of these fees and the calculation of the fees, the calculation of what kinds of structures they're applicable is done in this city by this city's staff who are accountable to your constituents and not done by the county. We simply deliver them our calculation and the fee. They pay it and then they're done. You can see built in here in terms of appeals and individualized assessments or trying to determine whether or not something is eligible for impact fees. That's done here in-house.
All right, council, what do you guys want to do on item number 2, new business?
Mayor.
Councilwoman Workla.
Excuse me. Jeff, so when I read, sorry, I got a little bit of cold here, but when I read 6.2 through, I guess the rest of that section, I think that's pretty much what you're saying, right? It says here, for the first year of the agreement, the Joint Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee shall meet at least bi-monthly to monitor, evaluate implementation of capital improvements plan, report to the city and county any perceived inequities in implementing the capital improvement plan or imposing the development impact fees, and to advise the city and county of the need to update or revise land use assumptions, the capital improvement plan and development impact fees. So you're saying that this is putting in place for them to meet together to look for any deficiencies, thank you, that may be occurring, right? So this is giving the power to bring those two together. Is that what this is doing? Bringing the two entities together to look for any deficiencies, and if there are, then it says down here that the county shall bear the cost of its retained. Just clarify, because I think just for like assurance, we need to make sure that, like what you said, the county will pay the deficiencies, and is that what this is saying?
Mr. Mayor, you could. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Workla, yes, exactly that. Not only does this steal a lot of language from state code, but it makes a specific mandate pursuant to this agreement. That is, the two entities are embarking on this endeavor with the knowledge and the intent, the specific intent going forward, that they will do these things and that they will scrutinize that plan so that you can feel comfortable with it. You have at least one member of your body that isn't comfortable with it based on some kind of data. You have paid the same consultant that you're going to pay the city to revise your new one. The county is retaining that consultant. So we're going to have some same in-house, and you're still free to challenge those assumptions, as is anyone else. But instead of the Impact Fee Advisory Committee waiting until the end of the year to meet, We're embarking on, the city, you as a governing body are embarking on this agreement with a specific mandate to that committee to meet more frequently than they're required to statutorily. And not just when they feel like it, but as it says, the county agrees to make available they also agree to make available their retained consultant. In other words, we're not going to have the Impact Fee Advisory Committee flying in the dark. So they're, upon reasonable request, that Impact Fee Advisory Committee says, we need Colin here to go over these growth numbers. He's got to be there, and the county's bearing that cost, according to this agreement.
Mayor,
Councilman McCarthy?
sorry, didn't know if I interrupted.
No, no, you're good.
Jeff, I'm glad to hear that, as to speak from my past experience on the DIFACT, it was very much in the dark and quite frankly difficult to get data, information, records, and that. I saw that P&Z had a packet given to them that had EDU counts to building permits to financials in depth. So I have to say that I'm glad to see that progress, and I feel that we're structuring that way. I guess I can't, not to try and beat a dead horse here, but it feels that this is kind of starting to give the keys away on this. If we go through with this and we're going to enter into this agreement, that we potentially are already setting ourselves up to fail because of the issues with the CIP. And so that's my struggle, is would not be better to, as you say, yes, having them work on it, and you want to wait for them to complete this if we're going to have an amendment in that. I guess I'm just trying to figure out, is this really starting off on the wrong foot?
Council, myself, Brenda, and Tiff looked at this. I went back and forth with Mr. Schroeder a lot. Like I said, I'm good with it. My only concern was having impact fees taken from the city of Mountain Home and utilized outside of Mountain Home. I think and that was my only, and Mr. Shore will tell you that was my only gripe. We fixed a lot of the other things in there, but what was the reason again? Like why they could spend it somewhere outside the area of impact?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
So they require constant feedback from the Impact Fee Advisory Committee as to where the growth is occurring and where they have the need for the shed. So I believe they expressed that pretty clearly in the last few meetings. And so if there's a chance that the shed is going to end up somewhere else, the city possesses a Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee who is jointly working with the counties, and you will know well in advance if they're intending to put one somewhere else and pay for it with city funds, and have a chance to say, hold the phone. All of this is built in to be self-correcting, and every capital improvement plan, the minute it comes out of the printer, is out of date. So the capital improvement plan is designed by statute to be an iterative and ongoing process where it's constantly being tweaked. The statutory standard is annually. As we have seen, and we can see clearly, that's probably not adequate. And so this mandates that they meet more frequently to give the feedback that Councilman McCarthy is concerned about. In terms of perceived errors in the CIP, that is a task upon which the county has put that consultant, as have we, for the city.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Jeff. Councilman McCarthy.
I'm glad that you brought that up, Mayor, because that is, again, year 2027, Pine Station, $126,000. Year 2028, $220,000 for Pine Station. 2029, $283,000. So we're not even looking in Mountain Home Station according to this amendment CIP until those dates. And,
Mr. Mayor.
sorry. And so my question, or not my question, so again, I keep coming back to my concern. I mean, there's a news article that just came out a couple weeks ago with KTI, Channel 6, excuse me, where they talked about 80% of all Idaho counties experience growth, except Elmore County was not one of them. They've actually shrunk the last 2 years according to the data from the Census Bureau on that. So again, I'm for these impact fees. I'm for the agreement in that, but I'm saying that we're starting off on a faulty foundation that has been brought up by the previous independent body before it was moved to P and Z. Nobody wanted to listen. Concerns went unheard. Quite frankly, actually, to give credit, Councilwoman Workla was pretty much the only one that wanted to hear from the DIFAC at the time. So again, would it not be better to have everything line up better when it comes to growth rate, to having the actual Mountain Home West Station and that, taking care of our constituents here in the city of Mountain Home, because we're seeing that's where the more of the growth is happening in the county. I just,
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Schroeder.
I just want to say something that I think I have no real legal opinion regarding that, except one thing, and that is all of the fees that Elmore County has collected for EMS to this date have not come from within the city of Mountain. None of them have. And so to the extent Elmore County is going to spend the collected impact fees outside the city limits or for another area, those were collected. And again, that impact fee advisory committee can go in there and adjust those and have them define specific service areas. That's something I would legally recommend for the county to make the CIP more defensible. But again, what you have here before you is an agreement for us to allow the city to order people to pay them before they get a building permit here to the county.
All right, council, what do you guys want to do?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Sanders.
it's my understanding county's already signed off on this, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then as to this agreement, what strikes me about it, it's in one hand, the things we've been asking for a while, and that's to have the city and the county sitting down and communicating and working together, looking at a bigger picture than each of our own individual worlds. This document allows us to do that while at the same time maintaining our own integrity as far as how those impact fees are collected and ultimately how they get spent. I don't know that there's ever a perfect time to launch a partnership. But with this one, I see the mechanisms in place make rapid improvement at a level we've not had before, because we've relied mostly on people's good faith to this point. Not had something we could go back to and everybody look at and say, we've agreed to do this, let's get it done. So with that being said, I move that we adopt this document as presented tonight.
Do I have a second?
Second.
There's a second. It's been motioned and second. Any further discussion?
Jeff, sorry.
Councilwoman Workla?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I'm struggling today. So how long was the county asking for this? How long has this been in talks between the county and city? A couple years?
A little longer than that. There was an error at the beginning, and I can rehash it as many times as you like. Or, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, forgot to ask to be recognized.
I'm just looking out for you. I know you.
No, I feel like it's important to answer this because I think the city sometimes gets unfairly maligned for the way this turned out. And so it's important to note that the first iteration of trying to do this was prepared by a civil attorney that did not know that there was an absolute boundary between the city and county. I was actually along for the ride part of the way when I discovered another of my client cities was intending to do this. When I dug into it, I discovered that that's not possible. We can't do it that way. That a ratepayer or a fee payer would be able to challenge the city's collection for a county ordinance that's has no effect in the city. And so through some long discussions with the county's attorney and myself, we arrived at the same conclusion. It was difficult because there was another governmental entity that didn't see it that way. It took a while to get that through. It took a lot of explaining and a lot of writing memos and a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls. And so then the county decided that they realized what they needed to do, and that was to go on a persuasion tour and talk to each of the city councils and inform them of the need to adopt a mirroring ordinance. And so, again, this is part and parcel of separate sovereignty. So you're the ones who decide whether or not you need or want to do that or not. And that's up to the county to persuade you whether or not there's a need for you to do that. And so this body didn't, or deferred to the Impact Fee Advisory Committee, and now I've lost track of which iteration we were at. But in any event, what needed to happen was the CIP. And midway through this Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee, weighing in on the county CIP, we discovered a city that had been sued for their CIP being lacking in certain statutory requirements. So we grabbed the steering wheel again and said, let's tune up our CIPs so that we're not facing this. And that's what we did. And so how long it took, I don't know. But I can tell you that it didn't take any longer than it should have.
Okay.
Or needed to legally.
Okay. The reason why I brought that up is because from the county's perspective, it seemed like it took a while, and I'm glad it's finally being implemented. So, or that it's actually heading somewhere. Because I talked to the commissioners about this, and it just seemed like it. So whatever side of the story that you can see, they see, or you see, or who sees, yeah. So I'm glad it's come to fruition. So.
Just so you're aware, I mean, all or both, or a few of the attorneys who are involved in this have other schedules and other things. And so can we review this? So Abby was one who took the first stab at the intergovernmental agreement. I came through and hacked it up a lot. And then we went back and forth, hacked it up a few times. And then I sent a copy to the mayor and Tiff and Brenda to make sure that we were on the same page in terms of who's doing the administering. So this part of ironing this agreement out to make it work and work the way you intended it to was the part that took a while. And Tiff and Mr. Mayor and Brenda's written comments on changing it were extraordinarily helpful. But these things, again, take time to produce a quality product. As you can tell from our brethren up in Boise, they occasionally produce work product that's legally insufficient out of the State House with laws that they pass. Sorry.
Side note.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
Councilman McCarthy?
Come back to me, please.
Yep. Councilman Sanders?
Aye.
Before I vote, I just wanted to make a quick statement. I'm very much torn on this. Again, very much happy that the county is here to talk about the impact fees for EMS. Jeff, you brought up about the legal aspect of the spounder that was brought up by DIFACT in the past. Based on seeing that we're nowhere near the 3 or 4% growth rate that the CIP was projected for the county, Pine Station and that, I have a lot of reservations. So I don't feel that my oath for the Idaho code can bound me to going against what is necessarily legal in that. So for that, I will vote nay against this.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Schroeder. I know you got another meeting.
Thank you,
You're
Mayor and
late.
Council.
Thank you.
Jeff.
This is track star on.
All right, we're gonna run down the consent agenda. It's a doozy this week, council. It's 1 through 6. Is there anything that you want to have any further questions on, or
Mayor.
Councilwoman Workla?
So I don't want to pull it. I just want clarification because I spoke to a citizen about it, and I was actually kind of confused until I got some clarification from treasurer and clerk. So let's just start here. If you look at the bill run underneath general admin, last 48655, you can see that it's the Railroad Park Funding Co-op. It's for Idaho Materials and Construction. But then there's an additional line, last 48650, for the Railroad Park Co-op URA. And so I went back to look how far these funds were pulling from the general account, because in my mind I'm thinking, if there is in-kind work being done, which we know there is, so sorry, if it should be coming from water, wastewater, and streets, because those are the workers that are tied to those departments that are doing the work. And so I went back to February. I looked at the month February through May 26. Lines 8655 has $137,598 that has been paid from our expense account. out of the general fund. And then line 8650, it's $885,032. And so then I had to look to see what have we received from the URA. URA paid 222,000 roughly. I'll say $222,107.87. Okay. And then there's another 707,454 check that's going to be coming in. So that those two checks equal 930,561. Well, we put out over $1 million, so 1,022,630 minus the 561 leaves us about a $92,000 question. Where's that money coming from? So poor Tiffany, I caught her literally a minute before the meeting started. I said, explain this. And I told her I was going to have her explain this on record. So why it's, first of all, coming out of general admin. And second of all, the difference there, how that 92,000 is going to be paid out. Tiffany?
So the URA funds, and so just so the council and everyone are aware, the auditors have advised us to do it in this fashion to make sure the accounting is clean and the total value of the project is all funded collection. So if water was to pay the expense, it would come out of multiple different funds potentially within water, which then makes accounting very messy. So we've elected to do it in this fashion through legal and our auditors. So all the work that is coded out of the 8650 line, which is titled Railroad Park Co-op URA, is funds to GUHO, the project manager. That's what you'll see out of that. Those funds, once we receive them and we expend them out, we're receiving reimbursement back from the URA district. They meet on a monthly basis. So happens to be, they met last Tuesday, the 18th. We received the invoice to GUHO Wednesday morning. So we've already sent them the reimbursement information. It will be approved in their June meeting. We'll receive the check for URA. The fund line, which is the 8655 Railroad Park Funding Co-op, that's all the city expenditures thus far in the project. Collectively, between water, wastewater, streets, parks, anything is all being coded out of that line. And that is at the end of project completion, we will go back, and we're keeping separate spreadsheets, which I believe every one of you have a shared link to those. We'll go back and we will then journal entry and correct them with the auditor, so each department pays their appropriate share of the project.
Mayor.
Councilwoman?
So 8655 is pretty much the in-kind work that's being collected into the general fund account, but then that, when it closes out, that in-kind work will be split between water, wastewater, and streets, is what I'm gathering. And parks, okay. And then I always ask this question, but we always get, I don't know. We don't know how much we're gonna put in for in-kind work. It's still a guess. Are we capping that out soon?
Where are we at with that one? You know, Chris?
Still have, sorry, this is turned off. I want to make sure that's turned on. We still have a little bit of the prep for the concrete work that's going on, the tree stands, some of the sidewalks, that kind of thing. The majority of what's left though is from parks. So all the installation of the grasses and the flowers and the trees and the bushes and all that. The wall, that wall put us a little bit behind just because of the extension of that. So we did have to take a couple extra days to have guys out there doing the prep work for that. But we're about done with all the street department stuff. Water has 1 meter left to install. Sewer's completely done. And it's going to mostly just be parks at this point.
Probably get you a pretty good synopsis where we're at. Let's work on that. We'll work on that tomorrow, and then we'll send that out to you guys.
I can get that, absolutely.
And then are we pretty much done with our payments to GUHO?
No,
Mayor,
$5 million project.
Oh my gosh, okay, never mind.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Harjo?
I don't mean to interrupt, but there is a point to interject here that when we get as the city the invoice from GUHO and the city does its checks and balances before sending that bill over to the URA, under the hood of the URA, there's some processes that happen there that make it essentially next to impossible when they receive the invoice the same day as their meeting. And I'd like to highlight what some of those are. So GUHO performs the work per the contract, and this is the workflow on the URA side and their partnerships. GUHO performs the work per contract and submits a detailed invoice to the city. Step 3, the city reviews, then pays GUHO, and that's that like 707,000 and change there. The city then submits the detailed invoice to the URA via email to the treasurer, and that happened the same day as the meeting. From that point, under the hood in the URA, the treasurer then forwards that invoice and detail to Radine and Associates for an internal audit. So it's made sure that it's in accordance with the performance of the contracted services, that as actual on the ground progress happens, that these things are per design spec and they're not outside of the scope of what the agreement was. Radine advises the treasurer to whether it's okay to pay or not, and then provides details in those instances that are not. Treasurer forwards the city invoice to Christie at Miracle and Associates. That's the URA's. Why am I lacking the term? Accountant. Thank you. And then Christie processes that invoice and includes it on the next month treasurer's report and bills to pay. And then updates the committed funds report for the URA. The URA board then votes to approve or disapprove that invoice. If approved, then that the check gets cut to the city there afterwards, after signed by the vice chair, treasurer, and the secretary. So there are some steps. It's not just a, hey, we want our money today kind of thing. There are checks and balances that happen on the funding side that prevent them from being able to address that same day. So that's why for this most recent invoice from GUHO, that the repayment from the URA is the pass through to the city won't happen until their next scheduled meeting.
All right, council, anything 1 through 6? If there's nothing else, do I have a motion to approve items 1 through 6?
Mayor.
Councilman McCarthy.
Just a clarification. I know you would kind of give me a little synopsis on it, but can we get an update, since we are looking at bills, about regarding the Wilson Golf products and that, and where we're at with?
So I reached out to Chris. He asked if it could be returned, and they said no, and I couldn't. I think I talked to you about, I don't remember what I said now. Said something about Wilson is not in the business of taking clubs, but giving clubs, something to that effect. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Mayor.
Councilman.
So is it included anywhere, since we didn't approve the billing last time for those? Is it anywhere? Looks like Paula might have.
Go ahead.
Mayor and council, so that check was voided, and in order to pay Wilson, the invoices back into the system.
So they're, just for clarification, they're not on here on this
Nope.
bill. Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
All right. 1 through 6, council. What do you guys want to do?
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo.
make a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Sanders.
Aye.
Councilman McCarthy.
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo.
Aye.
Going down to old business, approved consulting agreement with Tischler, Galena Incorporated, Mountain Home Impact Fee, authorized mayor to sign. Council, what do you want to do? This is the one that's going to fix the deficiencies. Do I have a motion to approve this one?
Mr. Mayor, I'll motion.
Councilman Sanders.
I'll move to approve the consulting agreement with Galena Incorporated regarding City Mountain Home Impact Fees and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman McCarthy.
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla.
Aye.
Councilman McCarthy, sorry, Sanders.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo.
Aye.
Run down to items removed. There were none. We've already done item number 2. We're going to run down to action item number 3, discussion decision to provide staff with direction regarding the FY27 civic budget presentations. Council? Yeah. Okay, I guess this one, you want to take this one, Tiff? As we're going through the budgets currently.
Sure. Mayor and council members, last year there was a little bit of confusion on how we either notified or communicated with them, and then we've had some revamp of their agreements through the budget process. So I guess we're just trying to seek clarification. Do you want us to initiate the invite to have them present? Have their reports been enough and you want to work through the budget process and then invite them at the very last stage if you have some funding left over? We're just kind of looking for some guidance there.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Sanders?
let me toss this idea out to the group and get your guys' feelings on this. Depending upon the approach we take with the budget setting, if we're looking to not set budgets or look at these types of service contracts until the end of our budget setting, then my recommendation would be that we wait until we have a number in mind of what the total amount we could afford to support these organizations with is known to us. And at that point, having looked at their reports, rank order them and then invite them to come in and make a best and final presentation.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Tiff, we also want, like, do you guys want us to, let's say, like, you do approve it, you want us to reach out, you want them to reach out? What's the kind of the, and I know, I think we had them do a budget, presentations every 6 months, right?
Yeah, Mayor, they've been supplying them in your monthly, like, almost every other month you're getting something from one of those civic groups to meet the needs of what their programming is. So.
Mayor. I think there was 3 changes that we changed to their contract last year. Do you have that handy? I think the things were, instead of just reporting at the last minute, they had to do it twice a year.
It was in my memo.
Thank you. Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh,
The 2
all of
things
it?
they were required to do, yes.
Yes, financial reporting. There's one other thing. What was it?
The service reporting.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So those were the 3 things that we required in their new contract, and I believe they have been upholding to that.
Yeah, Mayor.
Go ahead, Tiff.
That, I guess, since I'm the one that networks and communicates with the majority of these individuals and organizations, I would like to provide, same with Paula, is some direction of what you guys are going to do. Because they're going to reach out to me and then I'm kind of telling them, oh, I don't really know, I got to go with these guys. So if the intent is you're going to work through the process until the very end, and if there's money left over, you can then distribute it that way, I can let them know that. However, that leaves, just so you know, the admin budget is, like, I make that be your guys' decision anyway, so you're getting it to make tough decisions already. So, but that is part of the admin's budget. So if admin presents day 1, that's the anomaly of day 1. Like, we don't know those numbers until you get through the rest of the presentations. Does that make sense? So just self-note that. And we have no problem. We just didn't want to initiate the letters. And then you guys kind of go like, well, hey, what the heck? They're here June 9th, and you guys aren't ready for it. So that's all we're asking.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo?
I think in the past, it's been very valuable to hear those presentations before we hit our budget discussion amongst the council and staff members. From the perspective of in those instances, they've brought the historical data and they've brought their potential asks. The city has not fulfilled every ask that has been brought to them in the past, but at least at that point, those portions of the knowledge base are in front of us, not necessarily there to make decision on the day that they present, and as well not leaving scheduling as a last minute struggle to put these community touch points in contact with the council. And here we have 6, 7 of these organizations to get through. I think there would be value in hearing them prior to, and then keeping that mental note of what their historical asks have been and what their current asks are.
Copy that. You good with that, T?
Yeah, it's up to the body. To
Right.
decide.
Mr. Mayor, I'll follow that lead. Yeah.
Okay, we got our marching orders.
So mail letters and have them present in the upcoming meetings. Okay.
All right, council, thank you. And then, Councilman Harjo, the next one is yours.
Point of order, sorry.
Yeah.
It's an action item, so do we need to?
Oh, I guess it is, yes. Councilman Harjo, you want to make a motion to?
Sure. Regarding action item number 3 on new business, I'll make a motion to provide staff with direction requesting that civic groups be contacted and scheduled prior to our annual budget hearings, so we may absorb that information ahead of time.
We got a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilman Sanders?
Aye.
Councilman McCarthy?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
All right, we're going to run down to item number 4. Councilman Harjo.
Okay, I think our big board is not working at the moment, unfortunately, but everybody has gotten the presentation in our packets. The intent for this is to stoke some thought and conversation as we progress through these large portions of what our touch points are with engineering. Oh, is that actually working?
I don't know. I'm gonna try.
Give me 1 second. Sorry, council. Let me see if we can get this on.
Maybe if you become the presenter, it might work for once.
There you go. If you select that crazy looking window, looks like Inception. Take myself off here and give that. Yeah. Thanks, Diff.
I don't know what I did, but I pushed the buttons.
So through several of our instances of task order amendment number 9, well 18, the ongoing discussions about wastewater treatment alternatives, there's this constant theme that that we don't know what we're getting for the money that we expend as the city and the people's taxpayer dollar for engineering services. And so part of this is meant to be educational, but also to stoke conversation amongst the council and the professionals that work in these fields. Quick overview, key terminology is listed in here, things that some folks might not be familiar with, some of the federal, state, and city requirements, understanding Amendment 9 to the task order, what the city engineer touches in that process and why it matters. Concerns that I have, those are again meant to just stoke conversation and stoke forward-thinking thought. Some options to proceed that I see in front of us, not necessarily that those are the only options, but to put a handful of things out there. So potential service level expectations out of a new contract, the development review fees snapshot, which is something that we've discussed and kind of touched on in several of these conversations regarding development and growth paying for growth, and then some future goals that I have for us as the council. Key terminology: Department of Environmental Quality, IDAPA, Idaho Administrative Procedure Act, QBS, the qualification-based selection process, and a qualified licensed professional engineer, licensed by the state of Idaho. So under federal law, we have several touch points that we have had in the past. Well 17 falls under this. Under federal law, we must choose an engineering firm based on their demonstrated competence and qualification prior to considering price. Idaho code is very similar in that sense. That shall be the policy of the state that all political subdivisions shall make selections for professional engineering on the basis of qualifications and demonstrated competence, and shall negotiate contracts and agreements for such services. The primary actor here being that engineering firms are based on, their choice is based on qualification at the municipal level. Going on about the health and safety as that applies to sanitary sewer, water main extensions, storm drain extensions, and other facilities owned and operated by the city. There are links in there that you can click or search up that for each one of these as I roll back, that you'll be able to find the sections in their entirety for your own research. Some definitions for qualified licensed professional engineer. Where we get into the nuts and bolts of why we fall under the requirements. The Department of Environmental Quality of the state of Idaho has in 2 sections of IDAPA code that when extensions are open or operated by a city, county, quasi-municipal corporation, that you must have specifications, plans reviewed and approved by a qualified licensed professional engineer. As it pertains to Mountain Home City Code, especially in the land use and development of subdivisions, you can do a Control F on our city code when you click on section 9-16 and find all of the different points in which engineering is a required review point. And while that also reads as kind of stereo instructions in some ways, there will be some highlight as to where those points of contact and why they're important to us. The development plan and design standards, some of the things, and this is not a comprehensive list, but some of the things that engineering touches on that we can show you today in the development review process. So getting to understand what the task order of the amendment is, Amendment 9 is there to perform many functions across water, wastewater, streets, development services. Development services is a key point that often gets kind of left out of the discussion when it comes to what an engineering service brings us, or a qualified licensed professional engineer in its requirement delivers us. The ongoing support of regulatory compliance, infrastructure planning, and the day-to-day technical needs of the departments that these topics fall under. Collecting annual wastewater report data for DEQ, annual water rights reports, irrigated acreage analysis for IDWR, our landfill-related support for the landfill that we're closing, sampling support for water and wastewater, funding support in the mechanisms that bring these key pieces of public infrastructure to life, wastewater treatment, technical support, and non-development modeling support. And that non-development modeling support is things like how expansion of systems will affect other portions of loops. Say, for instance, the Western Trunk Line task order that came out previously was based on modeling of that system. Why it matters to the city: bringing improved efficiency, enables timely response to the routine engineering needs, reduces the staff burden, and as well, under that, civil engineering is highly complex. We do not have a civil engineer on our staff. Should we choose to hire a civil engineer, that comes with a pretty large asterisk. Cost. To hire a civil engineer runs about $150,000 to $200,000 on average in the state of Idaho. And as well, civil engineering is not just all one. An engineer is not just an engineer in that sense in all aspects. Where this is important is the depth of knowledge, and why qualification-based selection process is the requirement at the federal and state level, because the depth of knowledge in the specific realms is paramount to the public interest. Supporting compliance, protecting the city's infrastructure investment, keeping development moving, and maximizing funding opportunities for grants, loans, applications, and external dollars to the city projects.
And Councilman Hars, really quick, we had a civil engineer, and they're not allowed to stamp our own projects.
Correct.
So they had to send that out to another engineer to stamp.
And so some of these points that I'd like to make, we'll bring this up. This is Department of Environmental Quality's publication on how to hire an engineer in an engineering firm for public wastewater or public water and wastewater system design or modification in the state of Idaho. This document defines the specific reasons that the selection must be based on qualifications and price. I will be getting our city clerk these documents to disperse to the rest of the council if you don't have them already. This document makes it very straightforward. It is illegal for an owner to break up a single project into multiple projects to bypass a former QBS process. It is illegal for an owner to request a bid for any QBS process. And that is very key in the discussions that we've had, where this council has said, well, we want to go out for bid. going out for bid is not legal in the process of state law. This goes on to hiring a professional engineer, the workflow for hiring that engineer, developing the RFP process, ranking the respondents, and then negotiating after the interviews for the contract and what those exceed and not to exceed breakover points are, and what to do in the instance of a failed negotiation. There's also a service in the state of Idaho called QBS that is listed in this document with a link that helps municipalities follow state law to determine what a qualified or what the qualification selection process should follow. Those are all very key points, that this isn't just fluff and it's not just things that we can pass over, but they are key and critical points to how you select a qualified licensed professional engineer. In some of these discussions that we've had, I've noted several instances where the discussion turns to what the perception that we're not getting for the cost of professional engineering. So I want to go through a handful of these things that we may not as a group frequently have encounters with, but documents that exist in the developmental workflow. In this instance, Keller and Associates reviewing City of Mountain Home's qualified or licensed professional engineer review of Fall Creek Phase 2. And in this, not only do they define the IDAPA codes that were followed in this, but to show that this checklist was fulfilled by that QLPE. And some of the things that fall under that review, this, I was trying to break it up so we're not picking on one particular developer or development, but some of the things to highlight that occur during those development reviews that do have direct impact on the quality of the build and the adherence to not only local code but state law in how they're delivered. And in this, the City of Mountain Home has our engineer redline these development reviews. So this is delivered back to the developer. It is given to city staff. It exists on OpenGov at the moment in that workflow for everybody in that workflow and notification process to openly see. In this particular drawing, there's a handful of callouts where the QLPE is going through these documents or going through these plans with a fine-tooth comb to find where the outside engineer from development, from the developer, may have missed a step or have something that's not necessarily in compliance with either local ordinance or state code, or not in the best interest of the City of Mountain Home. Everything from slope, setbacks. In this particular document, it's calling out where taps for water need to occur. There's instances in this particular document about the conformance to easements. Several of these documents discuss things like the set depth of meter branches. And again, this is just one of many that exist within and are required by law, but exist within the workflow of development services for each project. These are things that are not, this document right here is not something that we frequently have access to or awareness of, but this very much highlights the importance of why a professional engineering service is required and what protections it offers. Not us sitting here as the governing body of the city, but the very people that reside in our city. These laws were made because we, as the governing body, owe it to the very people that we serve to make sure that in their public interest, that the infrastructure that serves them was not shortcut somewhere. And thusly the importance of why state law defines that this is a must in the process. Some of the concerns that I have with the previous denial of task order 9, first and foremost, there's a pile of documentation that this council needs to have access to, and I'll cover on why the need exists, as well as some solution on how to bridge that gap. Missing the context of touch points with the city engineer and day-to-day municipal operations is one that any statement that says, look how much money we're paying and not getting for, we're not getting anything to show for it, I would vehemently disagree on that point, and that will be applicable to any city engineer that touches a product of the city of Mountain Home. These are absolutely required at each one of these projects, whether that's the design of a well, the design of a lagoon cell 10, a wastewater treatment system, a street, or a development plan review. Internally, we have, as a council, insufficient communication with the professionals, both in-house and external. We need to have better contact with the professionals. We spend a lot of time in this room making suppositions about what the facts are when we have professionals that we hire, both in-house and as these engineering consultants. The big one for me, the current engineering support task order remaining balance may only last another month or so. In the denial of that, we're left in this lurch where in the very near future beyond that, we're gonna have to make some choices whether we're gonna go on a time and materials basis for how we address engineering requirements, especially as it applies to our development workflow, if we're gonna do an a la carte process, or if we're just gonna throw our hands up and say, okay, we're gonna go out for an RFP for the entire thing. The big issue with that is if we are seen as breaking a project up to avoid the form of QBS process, there's a pretty specific state law that implies some punishment behind that. We'll pull that one up now. Willful avoidance of competitive bidding and procurement statutes. These are not my words. These are state law that have existed for quite some time, and all these agencies like DEQ and otherwise reference this on a continuous basis because of their importance. If the city cannot deliver the required duties of a city engineer in the development workflow per Mountain Home Code 9-16, at what point does this introduce the risk of erroneous deprivation of due process and landowner interest? That's not Scott Harjo saying that. That's the Givens-Pursley Handbook on land use that poses that question, and it takes up about 30 pages of that document. The definition of a reasonable amount of time when it comes to defining what the deprivation is arbitrary. Do we risk making the citizen taxpayer shoulder the land use court case losses, which ICRIMP does not cover? When does the result of inaction constitute a false moratorium on development? This was a wonderful question for our legal team. If this does constitute a false moratorium by not selecting an engineer or an engineering service, and we can't proceed with development reviews, or we choose not to based on cost and not qualification, at what point do we run afoul of law? And as well, the operational efficiency will be impacted quite soon if this is not addressed. We, as the governing body, have a duty to maintain the forward progress and as well the maintenance of every system that our citizens utilize. And if we're not selecting an engineering service to do these reviews to help us through those unknown water, wastewater, catastrophic failures of a water delivery line or so on, which happen at all hours of the day and night, and that is why this is called an on-call amendment to the task order. What are we going to do? And that's a rhetorical question that doesn't need to be answered in this moment, but it is the food for thought. Options to proceed. Again, these are not the only options. We could course correct and reconsider task order amendment 9 for water, wastewater, general engineering, and development review support. In turn, we could schedule an annual budget evaluation where we consider approving a reduced amount at this juncture that would satisfy the city's need for the balance of 2026 fiscal year, around the $30,000 or $40,000 range, and then approve a task order amendment for each year following the fiscal year's needs as we could project them. Or move to an a la carte, require each engineering activity to be pre-approved, which would fall to the council on separate task orders. And what I didn't put in here is my theory that develops a constant looping system where this council would have to approve a task order for general engineering services or development review services before we even have awareness as the council that development review is in process in a workflow that occurs many steps behind us in a linear workflow. So now we're creating a cyclical workflow, which again is inefficient. Potential expanded service expectations. These are just some shot in the dark ideas of things we can ask for to make the value of what that task order amendment cost is. This is where the negotiation could start. Again, this is not a comprehensive list. These are just a handful of ideas. We could mandate that there are quarterly engineering meetings with the council, that there's more council-focused reporting out of this, additional off-site visits for research. Several of us have gone on off-site research visits for wastewater treatment plants, for instance. As we move into the future of what our public infrastructure requirements are and what our needs are, having that engineering outlet guide us through the process of, well, here's what alternative A looks like in real life and application. And as well, educational briefings or literature that can be delivered to the council, perhaps between those quarterly meetings or offsite visits that would give us more awareness of what occurs and at what juncture. It's been discussed by this council a number of times, growth paying for growth. In the development review fee snapshot on this slide, these are the captures of, at the time that this screen capture was taken, of what each development in the workflow has been assessed in the hours and the fees associated with those hours and on what date by the engineering service to do those plan reviews, making sure that the slope, the drainage, the setbacks, and all of those other key and integral parts to making sure that there's conformance to code are being done. And this represents that time spent. And these are fees that are then in whole or in part recovered in the development review fees that we assess as the city back to that developer for the cost of doing business. There's some opportunity, I think, here for review at some juncture to see if the fees that we charge to the developers are covering the cost of the service that's required by state law. And then some future goals. Consider updating those development fees for development plan and plat reviews, so we charge appropriately for growth, paying for growth. Building a city repository for critical reference materials and technology integration. Moving away from paper and moving toward a framework of some sort where at any point, should we have a keyword of interest like engineer, that we can get on our computer terminal and hit Control F and find the term engineer and gain a faster and better understanding without having to carry around an encyclopedia's worth of information. And we can have that at our fingertips. And then again, building those collaborative partnerships, fostering council collaborations with city department heads and the city engineer, so we develop a stronger understanding of the actual operation and discontinue assumptive decision making. There are quite a few things that none of us know, And that is why we have professionals in their fields and why it's imperative that we build those relationships, we find the qualified people to do those tasks and move forward as well, delivering the product that we all promised our citizenry that we're going to deliver. That wraps up what I have. If there are questions about these things, there are a number of links within this document, and as well, Tiff, I apologize, I'm going to send you some of these to distribute, including the PDFs of IDAPA Section 580116 for water and wastewater rules, 5801 or 0108 for drinking water protection and finance. These are the facts and the rules that we are governed by, and as well, Idaho law on procurement, straight from Idaho State Bar. As well, I think everybody here has the Givens Pursley Handbook, but this highlights how many reference points the city of Mountain Home and our elected council have at our fingertips to gain the knowledge to make the best decisions for our constituents. And it is a long and difficult read on some of these. I think the Givens Pursley Handbook's like 990 pages or something. That's where Control F is our friend, to understand where we're at. And that gives us the start to the talking point to talk with our legal counsel, our development services, and our public works, or our city engineer. So Tiff, I will get those over to you this evening by email, if you wouldn't mind distributing those.
Yep.
And then I'd like to see this council working towards developing that repository, whatever that looks like. So we all have access to this growing library of documents that are critical to the decision making. And that's the end of that.
All right, Councilman, thank you. We'll run down to final comments. I'm gonna send out a huge special thanks to the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, the Boise PD, ISP, Les Schwab, Elmore County Services. They all put together the Special Olympics torch run for the city of Mountain Home, and it was Corporal Hollis that led that charge, and they did a bang-up job. It was amazing to see them start from the park and ride and go all the way down to Les Schwab. It was an amazing feat. One, it was an amazing task to get all that put together, but they crushed it, and they did a really good job. And thanks to all the people that came out to support that as well. My other comment, and I'm gonna, maybe Tiff was gonna use Tiff's thunder, but there's a ribbon cutting at 2 o'clock at the pool on Friday, 29th. So if you so inclined want to show up, we'll be doing the ribbon cutting at the pool. Kind of was a soft opening, or
No, it's just a ribbon cutting. They'll do some training in the evening at 5:30.
is citizens allowed to come or no?
No, not at 5:30. No.
Okay.
Pool opens on the 30th.
Saturday they can go.
Saturday, that's right. Okay. What do you got, council? Anything for final comments?
Well, citizens can go to the ribbon cutting.
Right, but not can't swim. Right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Unless they're in Scuba Steve gear, and then maybe I'll let them.
Mayor,
Councilman Sanders.
as we get a little further down the line, first of all, I want to know, Chris, are we timeline-wise on the park? Where are we? Are we still on target?
So we had a meeting this morning. It looks like we're going to be paving the north and south parking lots end of July 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and that is the last step. So Guho, when we spoke to him, Morton, wouldn't give us an exact date, but the statement was end of July.
I have not seen the $2 million from our agreement with Micron come through yet. I'd like to know what budget line that's on. Have we already received that? Because we're paying right now out of the URA for the stuff that's going out there, but eventually we'll have to tap into those funds to cover the full $5 million of that project.
I think not Micron. Pioneer.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Okay. I was like,
All of us were looking at each other like, when did this drop?
It's a small amount.
I'm like,
my heart beating there.
No, we have.
Idaho Power?
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. We'll reach out to him tomorrow. I haven't seen anything from him as of today. Or...
And, well, my question is also technical. Where is that going to be received on our revenue stream.
It'll go into what is the URA line.
It's my hope that we would fully expend the URA agreement before we get into. And then I want to make thanks to Councilman Harjo for his presentation. Although he and I could probably have a discussion about some of the interpretations of the law involved, especially around the difference between professional service contracting and competitive bid processing and the laws that apply to that. But other than that, it was a very thoughtful and well put out presentation. So thank you.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Borgello?
your presentation helped solidify what Councilwoman Garvey has been saying for years. We need to hire a city engineer. So I'm gonna look at that next month with our budget session. Also, Mayor, we do need to make a decision on what direction we're going with the golf course. So if council agrees, if we can get that decision on the next council meeting's agenda, if we're either gonna go employee only golf pro, we're going to do the hybrid option, or if we're going to go third party. Does the rest of the council members would like to see that on there?
I would, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Sanders?
I did come in the other about a week or so back and was looking for the True Golf Solutions report. Remember that from 3 years ago? We couldn't locate a copy here, so I reached out to Troon, and True Golf Solutions is no longer part of Troon. So I've run into like the proverbial bureaucratic brick wall there. I've got no comeback from them. But the council members had expressed an idea of wanting to know what a contract out scenario would look like. That particular presentation had several. If I could track down perhaps the video of when that council meeting took place. I want to say it was in August of 23.
On our drive, right?
That may be the only place where we had the, Mr. Persecki was on the phone line and talked through a series of slides. I was sitting down in the audience when it happened. That was that far back. But that may be the closest the council members may have a chance to do some of their own research on that particular option that we'll be looking to hopefully take care of next meeting.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo?
I found it in my email.
You got
I'll
it?
send it to Tiff.
Okay.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilman McCarthy.
I'd very much like that as well, to bring that to this body. As I stated from the beginning, I'm very much interested in exploring all options, especially when it comes to hybrid or fully contracted. I think it's one of those that we should be looking at all options before we decide how we're going to move forward. So yes, I would be in support of that, especially with the research that I've done on other municipalities and their city-owned golf courses, their financial positions, and contracted examples and that for all those. So.
Just to take back on that, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
I think this is one of those time-sensitive issues. We've kicked down the can a little further down the road than any of us really thought we might. So I'd even support, if necessary, a special meeting in order to get this resolved.
I was just going to ask that. Thank you, sir. Okay. All right.
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo.
I wanted to thank the Parks and Cemetery staff for prepping the cemetery grounds for that Memorial Day honoring on Monday. It was a beautiful and well-attended event. Thanks to the local veteran groups as well for honoring our fallen soldiers on Monday. That was it was a heck of a turnout, and thanks to Colonel Gunter and the 366 for showing up and having their discussion as well. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilman. I forgot all about that one too. So, yeah. All right. Meeting adjourned.